If you've built significant wealth over your working life and have adult children, you've probably thought at some point about what happens to it when you're gone. Most people approach that question as an estate planning problem, something to sort out eventually, with a will and maybe a conversation with a solicitor. What I want to talk about in this video is a different question. Not what happens to your wealth when you die, but whether that is a case for passing some of it on deliberately while you're still here to see what it does. Because for a lot of people in a strong financial position, the opportunity to give meaningfully exists right now. And most of them are leaving it sitting in an account, waiting for an event that nobody wants to plan for. This comes up consistently in my work with clients. People in their late 50s and early 60s who have done everything right. Strong asset base, super well positioned, mortgage gone. And adult children who are in exactly the stage of life where a meaningful contribution would genuinely change things for them. Trying to get into the property market, building a young family, starting a business. And the parents have the capacity to help comfortably without affecting their own retirement. But they haven't. Not because they don't want to, because they haven't thought through whether the timing is right. This is general in nature, so it's important to consider your own situation, because everyone's circumstances are different. But what I'm going to walk through applies broadly enough to be worth understanding. Let's start with why most people default to the estate. And it's understandable. An estate is tidy. Everything gets divided according to a document. Nobody has to make difficult decisions while they're alive. The conversation doesn't have to happen. And there's a comfort in that, a sense that you've provided for everyone, without having to navigate the complexity of doing it while you're here. But here's what the estate approach misses. Your children will almost certainly receive that inheritance at some point in their lives, when they need it least. The average age of inheritance in Australia is somewhere in the mid-50s. By that point, most people have already brought their home, raised their children, built their careers. The money arrives after the window when it would have made the most difference. Compare that to giving deliberately now. While your children are in their 30s or early 40s, a contribution toward a deposit changes their entire property trajectory. It might mean they buy 10 years earlier, build equity for a decade longer, carry less debt through their peak earning years. The same dollar has a completely different impact depending on when it arrives. And the person giving it gets to see that impact, gets to be part of it. That's not nothing. The second thing worth thinking about is what giving while you're here actually looks like financially, because there are a few different ways to approach it, and they have different implications. The simplest is a direct cash gift. You give your children money, they use it, you reduce your assessable assets slightly, and you've seen the benefit. But as we covered in the Age Pension Trap video, there are gifting rules worth understanding. Centrelink allows up to $10,000 per year and $30,000 over 5 years before the gifted amount continues to be counted as an assessable asset. If you're giving significant amounts, understanding the time and structure matters. The second approach is lending rather than gifting. A family loan, properly documented, can work well in situations where you want to help, but also want some protection. Relationships or circumstances change. And it's not about distrust, it's about clarity. A documented loan sets expectations and removes ambiguity in a way that protects everyone involved. The third approach is contributing to super. If your adult children are working, you can make contributions to their super as a non-concessional contribution. It's less immediately useful than cash, but it builds their long-term position in a tax-effective structure. And the fourth, which is worth mentioning specifically, is using the proceeds of downsizing. If you sell the family home and move to something smaller, the freed equity is one of the most natural sources of intergenerational wealth transfer. You've right-sized your own life, your children benefit earlier, and the family home has done its job for one more generation. Now, there are real risks worth acknowledging. The most obvious one is giving more than you can comfortably afford. And I want to be direct here. Your retirement security comes first. Helping your children at the cost of your own financial independence is not a good outcome for anyone in the long run. The modelling needs to show clearly that what you're giving doesn't compromise what you need. If it does, the timing isn't right yet. The second risk is creating dependency. Giving deliberately is different to giving unconditionally. The most effective wealth transfer tends to happen when the contribution enables something specific, a deposit, a debt reduction, a business start, rather than just adding to the general pool of money with no particular purpose. Purposeful giving lands differently to a transfer that has no shape to it. The third thing worth thinking about is having the conversation. And this is the one most families avoid entirely. Not because they don't care, because it feels uncomfortable to talk about money and death and inheritance all at the same time. But the families who navigate wealth transfer most smoothly are almost always the ones who talked about it openly. Not once, regularly. What you have, what your intentions are, what you'd like them to do with it. What matters to you about how it's used. Those conversations remove the ambiguity that turns inheritances into family conflict. And they give your children the context to make good decisions with what you eventually pass on. So what does this all mean practically? A few things worth thinking about. First, run the modelling before you do anything. What you can give comfortably without affecting your retirement security. That number might be larger than you think or smaller, but know it before you act. Second, think about timing. When would the contribution make the most difference to your children's lives? Not when it's most convenient for your estate, when it actually matters most to them. Third, think about structure. Gift, loan, super contribution. Proceeds from downsizing. They all work differently. The right approach depends on your circumstances and theirs. And fourth, have the conversation. Not the legal version, the human version. What you want, what you hope for, what you'd like your wealth to do for the people you love while they're still here to see it. Most people spend their working lives building something, and most of them have a clear picture of who it's for. The question isn't whether to pass it on, it's whether to wait until you can't, or to give deliberately while you still can. Seeing your children step into their lives more fully because of something you did, that's available to a lot of people. It just requires deciding that the time is now rather than later. This is general in nature, so it's important to consider your own situation, because wealth transfer involves tax, legal, and family considerations that vary significantly. Getting proper advice before making significant gifts or transfers means that giving lands the way you intended. And if you're approaching retirement and want structured guidance rather than figuring this out alone, I work with Australians in exactly that position. You can find details below.